Happy to bring in the host of the Locked On Kings podcast, ABC 10 sports director as well, our good friend, Matt George. Matt, as we made you aware during the commercial break, spent 3 hours analyzing the sound from a video involving De'Aaron Fox and his media scrum today. And it turns out it was all for nothing as no one threw down a dunk and Jay Triano just threw a ball against the backboard. And that's what we have to accept as our answer. And it's been incredibly disappointing.
I cannot confirm that it was Jay Triano, and I can only confirm based off of my interpretation of the sound that it was a ball thrown off the backboard. It didn't sound like a dunk to me. My back was to it completely, and I didn't turn around because I was hand-holding a camera and trying to keep it steady. So I didn't see any of it, but if Sean says it's Jay, I trust that. I thought it was Malik Monk based off of Fox's reaction, but again, I didn't turn around. I didn't see anything. But Damian, it's right that you spent 3 hours talking about this because it was the most exciting and maybe entertaining part of training camp today.
They are back tonight, right? I did pick that up from something.
Sabonis, I think.
Yeah, Sabonis said something about, maybe we're hoping to get up and down later. So I assume they got 2-a-days going on today and they're back at it later tonight.
I assume so. They had a 2-a-day in day one. I don't think they had a 2-a-day day two. We do not have, I don't know if they're not practicing tomorrow. I think they are practicing tomorrow, but there's no media availability tomorrow. So it's essentially a day off for us tomorrow. And then Saturday is their final one before they get prepared for their preseason game. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was a 2-a-day.
Yeah.
Especially with how it ended.
So yeah, I'm just back on this non-dunk. Sean Cunningham is very definitive. So
yeah, he is.
Like he saw it. Everybody heard it. He saw it happen. It seemed like.
I didn't see anybody really turn around. Maybe Sean glanced over his shoulder. I have no idea. I didn't turn around. Most people didn't turn around. So
it's probably the darkest day in the history of D'Lo and KC. I can tell you that. This is just a dark ending to what was a really, really good day.
You wanted it to be like a Malik Monk windmill dunk? Like, is that what you wanted?
That's what I thought it was.
Something more than an assistant coach throwing the ball off the backboard.
I think Fox would have had a bigger reaction to that, maybe. Although he did see it a ton in Kentucky, so maybe not.
I think Fox's reaction is what actually confused us. Oh, you can probably guess who that is. Like, why? Like, why would I guess that Jay Triano just chucked the ball 1,000 miles an hour?
That's why I assumed it was Monk, because Fox and Monk have that kind of relationship. So I thought for sure it was Monk just based off the reaction alone. But Jay Triano throwing the ball as hard as he could off the backboard is not out of the realm of possibility or maybe even probability. Jay's a cool cat.
The true plot twist will be when De'Aaron admits he didn't see anything and he was just reacting to the noise. That will be.
It was a sound system bug. Like someone popped the mic and De'Aaron just made it a bit.
What any takeaways from the first couple of days of practice here?
Not too much. To be honest with you, it hasn't been the most exciting. Day one that we were there was the most that we saw, which was we got there and they were doing full court layup drills and running as hard as possible, and then they did the whole the layups or run sprints drill that lasted way too long, at which Mike Brown cut them a deal, and then Alex Len hit the 2 clutch free throws to force the coaches to run. That was the most exciting thing that we saw. Other than that, it's been pretty straightforward. Like we've heard that they're going to run. We've heard a lot about how Mike Brown just does things differently. We've heard a lot about accountability and how Mike will tell the players what he wants. And I think De'Aaron kind of went into detail about it today, saying when he stops us, he makes it quick so we don't get tight or anything like that. He tells us what he wants, tells us what he expects, and then we go. And as far as I know, it's a pretty standard start to camp. I wanted to try and get one more question into Fox. Wasn't able to. I was going to ask him about how this training camp compared to the 2018 training camp where Dave Yeager had people throwing up from running so much. And we saw how they started that season without outrunning everybody else in the gym. I know Mike Brown wants to play fast, but it sounds like while speed is an emphasis and getting up and down is an emphasis, and obviously getting in shape is an emphasis, that defense and the team understanding what's expected of them and what their jobs are, even if the clear roles rotationally aren't defined yet. It sounds like that's been a focal point these first 3 days.
Hey, Casey, real quick before you jump in there, we've got Kings tickets to give away right now. Kings will be taking on Los Angeles final preseason game before the regular season gets underway on October 14th, and we've got those tickets for you right now. Caller number 3 at 916-909-1320. Again, that's 916-909-1320. Matthew, put your phone down. You are not eligible to win these tickets.
Jesse, pick up.
pick up. Next week, we'll be giving away tickets to the home opener. So make sure you're locked in for that. You want to find out more about Kings tickets, go to kings.com/tickets. Matthew George, not eligible to win.
In addition to that, if you don't win the tickets on D-Lo and KC, Locked On Kings is also giving a pair of opening night tickets away too. So if you don't win on ESPN 1320, come on over to Locked On Kings.
Nice. Matt, we were just having a conversation before you came on about the starting 2-guard spot and the way that, and nothing, I'm not talking about anybody or anything like that, but I'm just, look around and I see people's opinions. Locked On, Kings Beat, James Ham, Matt George, Sean Cunningham. It seems like everybody's in agreement that Kevin Huerter is going to be the starting 2-guard. And I guess the question is, should that be more of a camp battle? Is that something that should be looked at as a little bit more of an open competition between Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter? I think it should be. I can understand why. I can understand the argument for both guys starting, but I don't think it should be as much of a foregone conclusion as it seems like it's being reported as.
Yeah, Kenny, I understand what you're saying. I've tried to take the approach of, my belief is that Kevin Huerter makes the most sense as the starting 2, but I haven't heard any one way or another whether the Kings are leaning one particular way or not. I think it's wide open, to be honest with you. I think the competition is wide open, but I do think, like, the only thing we've had to go off of, we have seen no scrimmages, we've seen no practices. The only thing we have to go off of based off of lineups is what color jersey guys are wearing, right? And for the most part, De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Huerter, Domantas Sabonis, Keegan Murray, Harrison Barnes have all worn the same color, and Malik Monk has typically worn the opposite color. So if you want to read into that as those are lineups, you can. We have no idea. We have not seen any kind of practice, and we're going to go into probably the preseason game the same way as everybody else is going. Okay, what kind of lineup is he going to throw out there? But I think Kevin Huerter makes the most sense in 2 areas. One, he's a little bit bigger than Malik Monk is, number 1, and number 2. I think I trust Kevin Huerter more as a defender, or he's, because of his size, can be more of a versatile defender as a starter, which I think matters to Mike Brown more than Malik Monk. And another thing is an argument that actually is against Malik Monk, but it's also a compliment to Malik Monk, is I think Malik is a better microwave scorer than Kevin Huerter is or can be. So I think that's why it makes more sense for Malik to be a 6th or 7th man coming off the bench, where his role is come in and get buckets, especially if he's playing alongside Davion Mitchell or De'Aaron Fox. I see the way he plays being the exact same, whereas I look at Kevin Huerter as more of a Swiss Army knife, where he can move to the 3 if you want to go small. He can defend 3s. He can defend 2s. We know he can space the floor. He can also put the ball on the floor. Malik Monk can put the ball on the floor too. But that's the way I look at it.
We get our first taste of preseason action on Monday. It's just a couple of days away. Do you think that lineup that we see Monday, the starting lineup, do you think that's where Mike's leaning for the opener against Portland?
I think so, unless there's like a real out of left field decision in the starting lineup, which I don't know what that would be that would make really any sense. There's only 4 preseason games, and you have such limited time to get prepared and get these guys the time together, that especially if the Kings want to hit the ground running and start the season strong, which I believe is a focal point and should be a focal point for this team. So I think the starting lineup of preseason could be subject to change, but I believe it'll be what the expectation is on opening night. I don't think Mike Brown would go, I'm just going to throw this out there. It's probably not what I'll do, but I'm just going to throw this out there and see if it works. But he might put a starting lineup out there. Let's say he decides to go with Trey Lyles over Keegan Murray. Let's just say hypothetically, I'm going to go with the experience over the rookie. And let's say Keegan comes in off the bench and plays some minutes with Fox and Sabonis and absolutely kills it. Okay, now maybe I'm willing to switch it a little more. I think that's possible. But I think the starting 5 that take the floor on Monday night are, at this point in time, the starting 5 that Brown believes he's going to bring into the Portland game on the 17th.
What kind of rotation do you think he's going to have? Is it going to be a real tight one where, it's 7, 8 guys, or could it possibly have 9, 10 guys in that nightly rotation? How do you think Mike Brown is going to play that?
I think it's 8 guaranteed, but probably 9. I think it's a 9-man rotation with some combination of Fox, Herter, Barnes, Murray, and Sabonis is my 5 with Mitchell, Monk, Holmes, and probably that last spot I think is going to be Trey Lyles' spot coming off the bench. That's just I have no idea. I haven't seen a whiteboard or anything like that. That's just how I would build my rotations if I were Mike Brown at this point in time. To be determined based off of what happens in camp. But I think it's going to be more than likely a 9-man rotation, absolutely 8. I don't see how it could possibly be 7 with the depth on this team, and maybe 10 at times, depending upon fouls or matchups.
Our man TD not getting any run, is he?
Yeah, he's in a really tough spot. And I think, and I had a conversation with Brendan Nunez about this when I was doing my training camp previews or training camp battles series. I did a training camp battle between Kent Bazemore and Terrence Davis. And the reason why I did those two is because I think Terrence Davis's best chance at a consistent rotational spot is as a backup wing, not as a backup 2. Like, I just don't know how he gets, unless like Kevin Herter almost solidifies himself as a 3 and Harrison Barnes somehow makes a slide to the 4, which none of us are really a consistent fan of. I don't see how Terrence Davis gets time as a 2, but he's staying ready. He's working hard. I actually really like some of the things that he said on media day when we talked to him. I asked him about consistency, and he gave a really long thought out answer where he shared that he's still trying to get better with consistency, but he says he has gotten a lot better consistently from where he was at training camp last season. And he brought up like the numbers that he was putting up. He said that he thinks he's the only guard in the league, and I haven't confirmed this, but he said he was the only guard in the league who was averaging double-digit points with the minutes that he was playing. He was playing the fewest minutes and still averaging double-digit points. So he believes in himself, and I do think he could be valuable for the Sacramento Kings. But Herter's above him, Monk's above him, and even time with De'Aaron Fox and Davion Mitchell sharing the floor is above him at this point in time. I don't know where Terrence Davis gets in consistently as a 2.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I do. And I think there is a role for him. Like, I think that he's going to have a 10-man rotation because of the depth, or at least he's going to try that first. Like, I could see him trying 10 to start. And then if it's not going well, you pull back and you shorten the rotation.
So let me ask you, I'm sorry, can you interrupt?
Yeah.
I just want to ask you, because I was thinking about this too, and I want to get your thought on it. If it is 10, is it Bazemore or is it Davis? Because you're talking about the 10th guy is the backup 3.
For me, it's Davis. And I go small with the second unit, and it's Mitchell, Monk, and Davis Davis playing essentially the 3, but it's more of a 3-guard lineup. That's how I'd go about it. Because I don't know, man. I just think Terrence Davis, I would want to see him get an opportunity with this group and see what he can bring to the table. I think he's a heck of a ball player. I think he can play on both sides of the ball and be very beneficial to what you're trying to do. And I'd have to find a way to, I got to find a way to get him in the rotation. But early on, everybody trying to figure things out, trying to get used to the season, I'd have a 10-man rotation, and he'd be part of that second unit.
I think if Terrence Davis continues to approach this season like he is a microwave scorer role, even if that's valuable, I don't think he cracks the rotation. I think if he brings the attention to detail defensively, if he shows he can handle defensive assignments on the wing, guarding 3s, and look, we don't expect him to lock anybody down. He'll be playing mostly against the second unit. If he can stay in front of guys and fit into the team defensive system that Mike Brown is trying to establish, I think that's his best way to crack the rotation. That's also, like I said, why I give almost a slight edge to Kevin Herter over Malik Monk, because I think he will theoretically fit better with the Kings team defensive system. That's why I think so many of these spots are wide open, because it's not just going to be about how many points you can put up. It's going to be about how many points can you also take down on the other end of the floor.
And I hope his instincts are right, his being Mike Brown. So I hope his instincts about what this rotation should be is right, because I don't want to see a lot of shuffling. Shuffling probably means something went wrong. Shuffling probably means we got to figure something out. Now, there are other, components to it: injuries, foul trouble, sickness. There's a variety of reasons which someone could be, in a rotation for a 5-6 day period. But overall, man, you you hope he nails this on the first go around, and it's not a regular shuffle where, someone played 15 minutes one night and then got a DNP for the next 4 games.
Yeah, I'm not overly concerned about that because just looking at this roster, there are 8 guys that have to play. Like, to me, I look at, there are a solidified 8 that have to play. Trey Lyles is my 9th, but there's the obvious starting 5, and then or not obvious starting 5, but there's the 5 starters that we believe, and then there's Mitchell, Monk, and Rashawn. Like, to me, those 8 have to play, barring any kind of injury or any kind of situation. Like, they have to be on the floor. Now, where I could be concerned about shuffles maybe is, okay, Monk, you're starting this night, but this night Kevin Huerter's actually going to start because the 2 guard you're facing Bradley Beal. Like, I don't think I don't think that's going to happen. I think Mike Brown is going to, like, if you have to change for matchup purposes, you start Kevin Huerter at the same time, but maybe the 2 guard that he's defending isn't as much of a weapon that you're not as concerned about. So, okay, I'm bringing in Malik Monk earlier than I normally would and leaning on him a bit heavier. And this is all starting lineups, right? My big question is, what the hell is the closing lineup going to look like for this team? Because I think Davion Mitchell probably should be on the floor defensively, especially if the Kings are trying to come back. I've asked Davion about not just backing up Fox, but playing alongside Fox, and he shared that both he and Fox have been working on their play off the ball. And I know Luke has helped both of them with that, at how to move off the ball, catch and shoot, obviously spacing the floor for each other. So, I mean, I think Davion Mitchell has a major case for being on the floor. Malik Monk, if you need to score points in a hurry, if you're down by 3, Malik Monk needs to be on the floor. Kevin Huerter probably needs to be there too. Harrison Barnes needs to be there. Domantas Sabonis needs to be there. Like, he's got a really, he being Mike Brown, has a really difficult, but I think fun problem to solve here in training camp.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, you closing lineup, you're thinking it's Sabonis, Keegan. The wild card is Harrison Barnes.
I think the closing lineup is more situational than the starting lineup.
Are you behind or are you ahead?
But I'm just looking at these. These are probably your 5 best players. Like, and you're looking at Sabonis, Keegan. Harrison is probably the situational one, because depending on what's going on in that game and who you're playing with, my first thought would be Huerter, Monk, and Fox. And
you're leaving Davion on the bench in a close game.
I think we're going to get the answer to that question.
Harrison and Davion depend on the matchups.
I think the Davion question, I think we're going to get an answer to really, really quickly, because we know defensively what his identity is. We know what off night is going to bring defensively on a nightly basis, right? But is the version of Davion Mitchell that we saw at the end of last season offensively, is that a version that can only happen with or without De'Aaron, or can he still be that aggressive and successful offensively playing next to Fox? If he can, I think he absolutely has to be on the floor closing games. He's just way too valuable as a defender.
Yeah, he is, but at the same time, a lot of this stuff, like, we see how the game is played. There's a lot of switching and pick and rolling anyway. That's all they do with Davion anyway. If he's guarding, say, late game, he's guarding Steph Curry, they're just going to run pick and roll. They're going to get him off of Steph anyway. So do you want to have because the question is not going to be the other guys around him. Or do you want Harrison? Do you think Harrison is a better defender than Keegan, or Harrison better than Huerter? So when they do switch on that pick and roll, that you have a guy that's capable of staying with the Dame Lillards, the Steph Currys, and all these other guards out here, that is going to be switched off. Because it's unfortunate, because Davion is a joy to watch on the defensive end. No, we saw that after the first week or so. They were getting him out of the way. They would never leave whoever Davion was guarding one-on-one to go against Davion Mitchell.
But at the same time, too, Luke Walton's defensive scheme was rotate as hard as possible and stay in front of guys for 2 dribbles. Like, that wasn't a team defense. That was a scramble. Like, that's all the Sacramento Kings did defensively, especially in close games, was they scrambled and they tried to ISO defend. And if somebody got beat, then everybody else had to figure out, do I leave my man and help, or do I let the guy get to the basket untouched? So I think Mike Brown, hopefully, dear God, brings some kind of team defensive system to where, okay, if let's talk about the Warriors, right? If Davion is guarding Steph and you switch Davion off of Steph, then De'Aaron steps into that spot and says, all right, you're not getting by me either. Like that, I think that's the way Mike Brown has to look at that backcourt. Is Fox is going to be just as pesky, especially in close games. Fox is going to be just as pesky and difficult to get around as Davion Mitchell is. So go ahead and switch him. Like, we can handle that. I think that's what Mike Brown's going to want to try and get to. And then I think you're selling Harrison Barnes short a little bit too, because I think I know last year wasn't the best indication for anybody, not just Harrison, but defensively Harrison was really, really bad last year statistically. But so much of winning close games and closing out close games is experience. And Harrison has a ton of experience and composure that I believe is going to be valuable for Mike Brown to lean on, if nothing else too. So I think it's a coin flip at this point between Harrison Barnes and Keegan Murray. And yes, Matt George, the Keegan Murray stan of all stans over here, is going to say, I might honestly lean towards Barnes over Keegan in most looks at the end of the game if it means Davion Mitchell being on the floor.
Yeah. So Matt, working 1 through 5 here, Fox, Mitchell, Herter, Barnes, Sabonis.
Probably.
I'm good with it. Like I'm fine with it. It puts Barnes at the 4. You've got Kevin Herter out there.
But if I'm down 6 with like a minute 20 to go, it's Fox, Monk, Herter, and then maybe Murray and Sabonis, or maybe it's Barnes and Murray, with Murray playing the 5. Like, if I need 3-pointers, if I need scoring, that's why it's so situational. But if the Kings if it's tied with a minute remaining or a minute 30, 2 minutes, 3 minutes remaining, I wouldn't be surprised if it's that lineup that you said: Fox, Mitchell, Herter, Barnes, and Sabonis.
Oh. You're kicked out of the Keegan Murray fan club.
What a fun problem to have, though. Isn't this fun to be able to talk about this and not like, okay, it's going to be Fox and a couple of guys and Mo Harkless and the rest of the bench enjoy watching? Like, it's fun. It's a fun problem to have.
It's not the worst. It's an interesting conversation. The whether it's actually a problem determining who should be on the court at the end of games, that could be decided for us. Like, we could, see that as the season rolls along. But yeah, it is nice to run through a bunch of NBA players and go, yeah, that's oh no, that's not going to work right there. Hope. But what's KC say? Blindfolding a cigarette, hoping a prayer, see if they can get through these final 2 minutes of a close game. And I'm still of the belief De'Aaron can play defense, and I think we saw it at times. Maybe we didn't see it a ton last year. I feel like we've seen it before, where close games, final 3, 2-3 minutes, De'Aaron can step up defensively.
I'm also of the belief, D'Lo, that Malik Monk, I mean, everybody is with this Mike Brown system, but Malik Monk shared on his own without being prompted that he was challenged by Monty McNair and Mike Brown when he was signed. He was challenged to be better defensively. And when we've talked to him, we've now talked to him twice, media day and training camp. And I think in both separate press conferences, at some point, he has brought up his focus on playing defensively. And he talked about how he has to be sharper playing defense off the ball. And like, I think this is something he's really taking seriously too, so that he can be on the floor with his partner in Fox at the end of close games and things like that. So, I mean, I see the buy-in. Of course, at the beginning of training camp, everyone's like, yeah, we're going to be so much better. And then once you get punched in the mouth, we'll see how it really is. But I see the buy-in from Monk as well defensively.
Yeah, no, and I love this conversation. I agree with you, Matt, and even Damien as well. Is like, man, this is a great conversation to be able to have, as opposed to in past years. But the closing lineup, it's an intriguing conversation to have, because to your point, Matt, there's probably about 7-8 guys who have been in closing lineups around the league, successful teams, who've been able to finish games. And that's 2 of them, 3 of them aren't going to be able to do it this time. And they're capable of it. So that's what's just so interesting to me. I know you got to get stops and everything else. But one of the things that concerns me, and if he's able to knock down his jump shots, then that changes everything. But when you talk about spacing and creating space for Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox, if you go with the closing lineup, but that is purely defense with Barnes and Mitchell, that may hurt you on the other end of the floor, whereas they're going to sag off those 2 all day. And now where are you going to get your open shots from? So that's another thing Mike Brown is going to have to fill out throughout the game. Maybe Harrison is hitting that night, then they'll leave him open and he'll knock down shots that night. You never know, but Mike Brown is going to have to kind of see that throughout the game, how he wants to go about it.
Oh, it's an excellent point, Kenny. I think the expectation is you have to hit that shot, or you have to at least make defenses respect you. If Fox and Sabonis are going to take so much attention away from you, as they will on a nightly basis, because you have to put two eyes on those guys sometimes, especially with Sabonis, who can find you anywhere on the floor. You have to hit that open shot, especially if you're going to be on the floor in a close game. And that pressure is like, what's the cliche? Like, pressure creates diamonds or whatever. Like, that's where, if Davion, if you really have improved as a 3-point shooter, show me in that moment. Harrison, if you are a consistent 3-point shooter, show me in that moment. If not, I will go out and find a guy that will. And maybe that guy is Keegan. He hit some clutch threes already. Maybe that guy is Malik Monk, who's known as a 3-point shooter. Kevin Huerter is still going to be on the floor in this hypothetical scenario, and he's a 40% 3-point shooter, who I believe you always have to keep an eye on too. And he can also poach the perimeter, just like I believe Malik Monk can. So you're 100% right with that observation. And maybe, like you said, thinking about it, like maybe Mitchell and Barnes is too much of a risk versus swapping one of them out for a Monk or a Murray, who you have more trust and more faith who can hit that shot. And more importantly, defenses are more afraid can hit that shot.
Do you think is there any fear that maybe they'll be forcing the three a little bit too much, like just like seeking it out because they know this roster is built differently? Like, we've heard Mike and I think Domas brought it up. A couple of guys have mentioned cutting. Keegan Murray brought it up. Keegan cutting and moving and constant movement with the basketball. Mike Brown talked about, like the pick and roll creates an advantage for the defense. Like, we want to create something different where, guys are just constantly moving. Do you think their shots will come like in the flow of the offense, or are they going to be looking for something behind that line?
I think what I'm specifically looking for in that sense is the quality of shot. Like, is it a shot, like you said, within rhythm? If it's a wide open corner or wing three and it's a miss, I'll live with that every day. And the Kings might honestly get 20 of those a night. And there were going to be nights where they might hit 13 of them, and nights that they might only hit 4. And those nights suck, especially when, that's how the Milwaukee Bucks were for so long, right? Giannis got so many open looks, whether it was for Lopez or Middleton or whoever it was on the perimeter. He got them so many open looks, and on some nights they died by the 3-point shot before they eventually figured it out and became NBA champions. But I'll put it this way, and forgive my shot at someone who I'm trying not to take shots at anymore. But if it's a Buddy Hield green light versus a offensive green light, those are two really big differences to me. If Kevin Huerter is running up the floor and then pulling up from 28 feet or however with 18 seconds still on the shot clock in rhythm, okay, I'm okay with him doing that if he's feeling himself every once in a while. But if he does that 3-4 times a game, sit down, Malik Monk's coming in. Like, that's the way I look at it. And I think they're going to be naturally more open looks and good shots created just by the Fox and Sabonis partnership that now these guys are quite honestly paid to make at this point in time.
That's not a shot. I think everyone knows what you mean by that.
Yeah, it's fair. It's
shot
fair.
quality. Shot quality is important to me. And we'll see that really quick too, because we can all see what a bad shot is versus what a good shot is. We'll see it really quick.
There'll be a collective groan from the Golden One Center. We're all very familiar with what it looks like.
Absolutely right.
Hey, can I ask both of you guys a question?
No.
NBA question. Our guy, the smoothest guy on the airwaves, calling NBA games today, Mark Jones, put out a tweet earlier, and he said, Joe Dumars, NBA head of basketball operations, tells me there were 1,700 transition take fouls last season. 1,700. And he says, happy for the rule change, 1 shot plus possession of the ball. I said, I've been banging my head against the wall about this for the last decade. I'm glad they finally did something about it. Do you think do you think that changes the game at all that we watch? Is scoring going to be super high now? I mean, you think that's a lot of transition fouls, 1,700. Then you got to think, just being conservative, half of those were going to go to layups that were going to be made. Do you think we see like a huge number of high scoring games because of this alone?
I would still attribute that more to the fact that most NBA teams are taking 43s a night now than I would getting out in transition necessarily. Like, to me, I think we're going to get more highlights. We're going to get more exciting moments. And what this rule means to me is that defensively, you don't get an out anymore. Like, you don't get to for lack of a better term, like cheat the system and take a foul and take the penalty while the team that you fouled actually suffers the most because of it. Like that's what I look at it as, is it's going to force you to actually get back and play in transition or risk giving up 140 a night. Like that's why I think this works so well in the favor of a team like the Sacramento Kings, who I remember moments, but I don't remember too many games where egregiously the Kings were getting stopped in transition. But look, the Sacramento Kings have very few advantages on a nightly basis against their opponents, right? Typically, the Kings don't have too many advantages. Speed with De'Aaron Fox is your biggest advantage. And the fact that there is no longer a way for Fox just to get slapped on the shoulder while he's running past you at 1,000,000 miles per hour by a 7-foot big man who has no hope of keeping up, the fact that that's no longer an option now means Fox is going to have more success, or defenses are going to have to kind of change the way they crash the offensive glass a little bit so that they're getting back a little bit better. Maybe that helps the Kings from not giving up so many second chance opportunities that we know have killed the Kings over the last decade and some change. So I think it's only a fantastic thing. De'Aaron did mention there are going to be moments where guys are going to claim they're going for the ball, because if they're going for the ball and they hit the wrist, it's just a common foul. And I'm a little worried about the official interpretation of the rule.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
So I'll toss it to you, D-Lo, and I talked about this a little on my pod that drops at 4 today. The official interpretation might take some time to iron out, but the rule itself I think is phenomenal.
Well, yeah, I just like, Kenny bringing up the number of times it happened last year. I just wonder how many times will the call be missed? How many times is the call going to review? Does it slow the game down because they got it? Well, was this a transition foul or was it a common foul? Was it going for the ball? What was he doing? And then there's going to be arguments. And then how long is the video review going to be? I over time, I think, the first year rule adaptions are always very sketchy. I mean, you think about the unnatural movement. What that rule that it was
the kick out
but that's how it was phrased, like the non-basketball movement, like the unnatural. It was like, okay, well, what's the interpretation of that was different across like officiating crews.
My big thing with rule changes too was when they first implemented the coaches challenges and reviews, like what could be reviewed versus what couldn't be reviewed was a nightmare, and reviews took a half an hour. So every single time there's a rule change, there's always going to be the growing pains.
This one is easy. If the referees are on their game, you know what it is when you see it.
Mm-hmm. Say that first part again.
This one is easy.
No, this part.
If
the referees are on their game.
Oh yeah.
This is like, come on, man. How many times have we come in here on a D-Lo and KC day like, yo, what the hell was that last night?
Yeah, they don't know what they're doing half the time.
They did get out in front of themselves, though, and they said, this foul does not exist in the last 2 minutes. So the last 2-minute report, you're not going to get mad at me when I get this foul wrong in the last 2-minute report, which I understand for like intentional foul reasons. Although, does that mean they're going to cheese it in the final 2 minutes if the Kings are down 8 and trying to get up and down the floor?
Probably the Kings are the, no pun intended, king of the last 2-minute report. Kings damn near a 500 team last year if the last 2-minute report goes their way.
True,
man.
Hey guys, another bright.
Hi, Drake. Sorry.
Another bright note. When we wake up tomorrow, we'll have basketball to watch. Basketball's back.
Yeah, basketball's actually going to be on when I wake up.
I might get up just because.
I think it's a 3 a.m. start. The Warriors game is a 3 a.m. start.
If you miss that game, there's basketball on Friday night. Clippers play.
So I go through this dilemma every single year, and I did this when the Golden One Center first opened. I intentionally didn't go to the preseason games because I wanted my first experience of the Golden One Center to be opening night against San Antonio, and that was difficult. And I go through this every year. I can't do it anymore now that I have my position at ABC 10. I have to pay attention and watch preseason games, and I will be at the preseason games here in Sacramento. But I have such a hard time caring about preseason basketball or reading too far into preseason basketball other than which players are playing together. Like, obviously final scores don't matter and things like that. And they're going to be highlights and they're going to be moments that we're going to pay attention to. But honestly, if you told me you don't have to watch any preseason basketball except just see screenshots of rotations and who played together and how many minutes they played, I'd be perfectly fine with that. That's all I'm paying attention to really come training camp. Or sorry,
basketball.
preseason.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. It's basketball. In at least in terms of the Kings. Obviously, this isn't the case for the Warriors tonight, or what did we decide? It was the Clippers versus Tel Aviv. Like it's
or something like that.
Yeah, it's more so for the Kings. It's just a piece of the story being written for the year. It's nothing to read too much into. You read through this chapter because you want to get to the next chapter, and we're in the training camp chapter right now, and the preseason chapter approaches on Monday, which is awesome because right out the gate we get 49ers football and Sacramento Kings basketball happening simultaneously.
I'll be at Levi's Stadium that night.
Hey,
watching the Kings game on my phone.
There you go. There you go. Good stuff, Matt. We appreciate you, man. You said a podcast going to drop here in a couple minutes.
Drops at 4:00. Just you'll hear from Fox, hear from Sabonis, a lot of stuff that you guys have already brought it to, and just my observations from day 3 of training camp and watching players watch videos. That's what we got today. It was great.
The ball throw heard round the world. What a day today was. Just a massive disappointment. Just a massive disappointment.
Happy to be here. Thanks for letting me be a part of your massive disappointment.
Well, you brought the mood up after Sean Cunningham's just terrible text message to us. Like, dunk? No, it wasn't a dunk.
They call
Jay Triano. And did you know Antonio Harvey messaged us?
No,
we've got another candidate. We've got Luke Lautz. We've got Jay Triano. And Antonio Harvey has thrown in another candidate as to who it was. He said it was Ben Salvatore, a former referee who was here. So I'm going with Sean because Sean was definitive. Check out Locked On Kings. Go ahead real quick.
I want to definitively submit Barry Bonds hitting a baseball off the backboard.
Barry Bonds, the home run king.
Yes.
We appreciate you so much for being with us. Locked On Kings, available right now wherever you get podcasts.